Alright, so today we're going to kind of walk you through setting up an RGB project on your house. This is all RGB lights. There won't be any other static displays or any other controllers. This is strictly an RGB. So how we're going to do this is we're going to install lights on our roof and on the front of our house. We're going to plug them into a Pixlite 4 controller, and then we're going to have that controlled by a Raspberry Pi, and we're going to use Xlights as our software package to create a sequence for our lights. So we're going to run through that process today. So this is our house we're starting with. This picture actually already has the lights installed. We won't show you how to install lights. We're going to assume that you can install C9 RGBs along your roof. We have them along the roof here. We come down through the roof here and here. We've also have them installed around the garage doors. They're actually hot glued around the garage doors to the brick. And we have a string of them running across the porch here. We have a little jumper connector cable here, and then they do go around our window. It's hard to see the window of the tree. But again, this is strictly an RGB setup and tutorial. So we have our lights installed. We have them split up into 4 channels. And right inside the wall right here is where we're going to go next and show you how we have all the wires coming in and plugged into our controller setup. Alright, so we have all our pixels installed on our house. We have them all wired up, and we have them all coming to a single location here. This is right inside of our garage, and you can see I've got some wires coming in. That's feeding the roof. So there's 2 channels feeding the roof, and then I've got the 2 garage doors, and then the porch and the window are coming in from the bottom. It all comes in here to our master control system here. What we have in here is we have a 240 watt power supply, so 12 volt power supply, and this is feeding a Pixlite 4 controller. And you can see all our wires come in from the bottom. So eventually we have all our 4 channels coming in from the bottom, and then they plug into the Pixlite and channels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the power supply is plugged into the Pixlite as well. And then at the top of a Pixlite 4 you have an Ethernet cable, and then we have that coming down, and our Ethernet cable comes down to our Raspberry Pi. Our Raspberry Pi is just a little microcomputer, and you can see we have a card on it, and then we have the Wi-Fi adapter. And then on the back we have another SD card. And this is running Falcon Player. And this allows us to get on any device with an internet browser that's on our home Wi-Fi network and control our lights. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on that later, but this is all our Raspberry Pi is. It's got a USB power, 2 amp power supply to it. Just plugs in right there. And then this power cable is just a replacement cord you can pick up at a hardware store, wired into the power supply. And it's just in a little plastic case you can get from any hardware store online. This is a cable guard, I think 1500. So that's kind of the brains of the system here. We'll go outside next here and kind of light up the 4 channels so you can visually see how the 4 channels play together. Alright, I wanted to illustrate how we have the channels split up on the house. So you see where it's red, the 2 garage doors are plugged into 1 channel on the Pixlite controller. The roof line over the garage here is blue. Those lights over the roof are all plugged into a different channel. And that control board sits right behind this garage door, where everything kind of comes in. And then this green section of roof, and then is plugged into a different channel, and then the white section. So it's a 4 channel controller. It's Pixlite 4, and it shows that I've kind of split them up across the board. Each channel on the Pixlite can hold I think 340 pixels roughly. So there's plenty of room to add more pixels onto this controller. This is about 180 total on the house, so I think the biggest one's about 50. This green one's about 50 channels because it comes down the side of the house here. So you easily on a Pixlite 4 have, you know, the ability to put 4 times as many lights up as what's on this. But this is again showing the how that's wired up. There's just each one of these sections has a wire dropping down into the garage into that Pixlite 4-panel controller. Alright, so now we have our lights installed in our house. They're all wired up to our Pixlite 4 controller, and that's plugged into our Raspberry Pi. One step I did skip is to do the Raspberry Pi and the Falcon Player. You'll have to go out to the Falcon Player website and download that. They have great instructions on how to get the Falcon Player on the Raspberry Pi, so I'm not going to actually show that because they do such a better job at it than I ever could do. But definitely you'll want to go out and get the Falcon Pi player and install that onto your Raspberry Pi. If you're going to control your system that way, you certainly could plug your computer straight into the Pixlite controller as well and not do the Raspberry Pi. Both options can certainly be done. Raspberry Pi is nice. We don't have to have a laptop or a computer wired into your controller to run your show. It'll just set up and run automatically. But now we have Xlights open, and we have this software is used to basically generate your sequences, whether you want to do just a regular sequence or if you want to, add music to it and actually do a light show. Again, this is all about pixels. Xlights does a very nice job with just solid pixel displays, although you can mix and match if you wanted to. So I've opened up Xlights. If you have a fresh Xlights install, you'll have to change your show directory and your media directory. You'll have to put in where you want that to go. I already have that in there. You can see my Xlights show directory will pop up. It'll default to not have anything in there. You have to actually give it a show directory that you want. Next, we have to add in our controller types here in our setup. You have to tell it what your setup is like before you can start programming your lights. So we have E131 setup. That's how we're using our Pixlite controller. So I'm going to add this up. And if my starting universe is 1 and number of universes, because it's a Pixlite 4, I'm going to say that it has 4 universes, 1 per channel in this scenario. If you had a 16 channel, you could certainly put in a 16 channel universe as well. And then on my last channel is actually going to be 510. So the reason for that is RGB lights are 3 channels, red, blue, and green. So each pixel takes up 3 channels. And 510 is divisible by 3. So you can have 170 pixels, and times 3 is 510. Even though DMX is a 512 channel system, to do pixels, you can only do 510. So I'm going to hit OK, and it populates my 4 universes, and then my channel output of 1 to 510, 511, etc., and it automatically sets them up. So I'm going to hit my Save My Setup. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and go to Layout. So I have that picture of the house again, and what you have to do is build models of what your display is going to be, and then you put the parameters of those models of what pixel each model has. And that way when you go into your sequencer, it knows where each pixel is, and you can create your effects and everything that way. So what I find easiest to do is start from the closest to the controller and go out. So we have lights installed around our garage, and these 2 garage doors are hooked together. There is a little jumper wire in between the 2 here. So they're hooked together, but what I want to do is I want to split my garage up to make it easier to control. I don't want to have one big strand here, even though it is one big strand as it's installed. I want to split it up to have my right side of my garage as a model, the top of my garage as a model, and the left side of my garage as a model. And the reason is that it'll make it a little bit easier to do different effects and different controls, where if it was all one strand, you're limiting yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new model for this right side of the door. Looks like I have about 9 pixels on this side of the door. So each side of my doors all have 9 pixels on them. So I have 9 pixels here, 9 bulbs. So I'm going to go click on models, I'm going to do new. I'm going to call it Big Garage. And I'm going to say right side. And in Pixlite or Xlight, sorry, you have a whole bunch of just plain models you can pick. If you're building a mega tree or something like that, they have different mega tree designs, different ribbons. They have all sorts of arches, circles, wreaths, spheres, and things that you can put in, and it'll get you the things that you need and draw you that model a little bit easier versus trying to draw it yourself. But what we're doing is a single line. We are going to have one strings, and this is actually 9 because we have 9 pixels on that string. I am going to start on channel 1, and if you look over here, it says my end channel is 27. You're going to want to remember that your end channel is 27 because when we go to make the next model of the top of the garage, you're going to start that model at 28. So you'll have the same thing here where you're going to put that in as 28. So we're going to remember that. Starting corner is the bottom right, and then we're going to hit OK. And then we hit OK. And you can kind of see where it popped into here. And you can see I have this model of 9 strands. So, and it's a little tricky to grab and click. But I'm going to turn it on end here. I'm going to shrink him down a little bit. And I'm going to kind of place them here. Or make them just a little bit smaller. It is a little tricky to get used to. And I'm going to set him right here. So now I have, that is my big garage on the right side. I have 9 pixels set up there. So now I'm going to go over to my models again, and I'm going to do another new model. I'm going to call it Big Garage Top. And again, we're going to do a single line. And I know that the top of my garage has 17 pixels. Now my start channel, if you remember, is actually 28. And again, I'm from output 1. I don't think I pointed this out last time, but from output 1, that is channel 1 on my board. So when I look at that Pixlite 4, and so channel 1 is plugged into my garage. So that means that anything on channel 1 up to 510 channels, I can run off linearly off of that Pixlite 4. So I'm going to say this starts in the top right. Again, it started on 28. That's important because if you said this started at 1, it's not going to know that you have these linked up together. It's going to think you have one channel. It's just not going to work. So we're starting at 28, ending at 78. So our next pixel on our left side of the garage will start at 79. So we're going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK. Again, it brings this out here. This one's nice because I don't have to turn it. I just have to grab it. And we're going to put this up here on the top of our garage. And that is our garage top on our model. And then again, we'll do this again with Big Garage left. This is going to be a single line, still one string. This has 9 pixels because it matches this. And we're going to start this at 79. It'll end at 105. And then the starting corner, I'm putting as the top left. And then we hit OK, and it brings me my model here. We're going to turn them around. Shrink them down a little bit. now I have a model of my three garages. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop here. There's no sense in having me keep building these. You'll know that over here you can see that if you lost your place, my end channel. So I'm going to start at 105. I'm going to build my my left smaller garage the same way, except when I start on this next one, I'm going to start this at 106. Even though there's a jumper cable here, we're going to do 106, and then build it the same way. And then I'm going to build my roof line the same way, except the major difference is when I start here and build it, I'm going to start at this corner. I'm going to have it on a different channel, so it's going to be on universe number 2, and that's going to be plugged into the Pixlite section number 2. So let me go ahead and pause here. I'll finish building this out, and then we'll show you the finished product here in a second. Okay, so I have all the models built on my house now. Split these all up for my garage pieces, my roof pieces. This little guy is because the house is three-dimensional. The garage actually sticks out, so this represents the strand that runs from this corner back to the roof over the porch here. I can't really draw it on this picture, so I kind of drew a representation of it kind of up this way. But that's kind of why that looks the way it does. And then our window has an arch, so I actually used the window model and made 8 across the top for the arch, and then the rest are 4. So it looks a little odd, but it works pretty good in programming. So I have this all set up, it's saved, and now I have all my models built. I can go into sequencing. One thing I'll mention here is you can group your models together in Xlights, so you could create a new group and add a whole bunch of, say you wanted all your roof to be together, you could group all your roof sections together, or other things together that you want to work together. It kind of comes in handy when you're trying to do full effects across, say, your whole house, or across multiple models. You can, I'm going to remove this so it doesn't hang us up later. But if you wanted like your whole roof to morph or something like that, you could group it together and apply effect just to your whole roof instead of the individual pieces. So kind of all the flexibility that we put in by splitting our house up into different chunks, it actually kind of takes that away and lets you group things together as well. So sequencer, I'm going to go file, I'm going to create a new sequence. It has a nice little wizard here with a bunch of different things. I'm not going to do a musical sequence. I'm just going to do a quick animation sequence. I'm going to do 20 frames per second. Nice thing I'll point out for Xlights, you can import from other software programs. So if you have a Lightorama display and it's all programmed and you want to add some RGB to it, you certainly could export that Lightorama sequence and add your RGB elements to it, and then you can either export it back to Lightorama or you could run it through Xlights. So we'll hit done here. It created me just a generic 30-second sequence. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to add in my display elements. So I want everything to be here. You can see it adds everything into my display. So if you look at Big Garage on the right side, I can double click this. I had 9 pixels in there, so it's giving me my 9 nodes. So I could individually control all 9 of those if I wanted, or I can add an effect or a color or something like that just to the whole right side. So I'm going to start this, and then just by hitting T, it adds in some timings. This lets us split up our effects a little bit. And we'll just kind of do this to show this. If you had a music file in here, in this section up here, you'd see the audio waves from your audio file. So when the waves get bigger, you can kind of set your timings on that as kind of triggers of when you might want something to happen in your show. But we're not going to do music, just to kind of keep this simple. So over here in Xlights on the side here, under effect settings, it gives me a whole list of effects, on, off, all sorts of different things, color washes, shimmer strobes, all sorts of just stuff that Xlights comes with. Some of them are geared towards models that we have, which are very linear. Some of them are more geared towards pixel matrices or maybe pixel trees. So keep that in mind that not every effect is going to work on every model. But definitely spend some time playing around with it. So I've got color wash selected. I've got red and green selected right now. And I want my count to do 3.7. And there's a bunch of other effects that you can have in here. But let's take this and let's put it on our big garage. The nice thing about Xlights is right down here in the bottom, you can see a preview of that effect. And that color wash effect with the current settings on that model is just going to go back and forth, fading into red and green. And I think that's kind of neat, so I'm going to add this into my whole display. I don't actually have to drag and drop these. I can actually copy and paste them as well. So let's do this really quick. Now what I can do, then go up to View. I want to see my house preview. So that's the nice thing now is we have this nice picture of our house with our pixels all drawn on it, and it's showing what that effect that we just created in the sequence looks like. So you can see it's fading back and forth between red and green. And this is nice where you get that nice preview of how everything works without actually having to have any lights installed or anything like that. So you can build all your sequences in the summer. Now next, let's kind of show you the point of the timing is we can come in and let's just pick strobe. I'm going to pick a few different colors. You can see down in the preview here, I actually changed my model here. That was an accident. So we'll drag this in here. We'll delete this and copy and paste it back in from above. And it's going to give me a strobe effect here. And you can kind of copy it in and etc. And then the nice thing is you can, we're going to save our sequence. Let's do sequence as, I'm going to call it test sequence. It's going to put it in my show directory. We're going to hit save. Now my sequence is saved. So we can go back to layout, and under our preview, now that it's saved, it'll preview kind of what our whole show will look like without having anything installed. Now at 10 seconds, we didn't actually finish our model, so it'll kind of show that. So if you wanted to see what you're working on and how your effects worked on your display, you certainly can do that very easily in Xlights, right from the comfort of your home. So now that we've created a sequence, we can come out to our Falcon Player. Remember, our setup is run by the Falcon Player, which is running on our Raspberry Pi, and this is what that looks like. So all I did was type in FPP on my web browser. So it's all configured and running that way. You can see today's December 28th. You can see my next show is actually going to start here in about 30 minutes. And it's going to be what I've called Show 3. So the first thing you need to do is on your channel outputs, is we have to set this up to match kind of how our Xlights is set up. So if you remember earlier, we have 4 universe counts and we have 510 channels per universe. So I have my 4 universes set up and I'm running 1 through 510 and etc. And we did set up our Xlights in multicast. You can do unicast as well and easily set this up. So this matches our Xlights display. Our interface is our Ethernet interface as well. And then this is actually, you see the wireless LAN there, the WLAN. This is actually the output to the controller. So the wireless LAN is actually what's letting me connect to the Pi Player now. But the interface of Ethernet going to the Pixlite controller is what we care about in this section. So we can go back to all sorts of different things. If you're not familiar with Falcon Player, you do have a status page. It'll tell you what it is. You could certainly fire off this sequence right now. And if we walked outside, you'd see that Show 3 is currently playing. So this is very handy. You can pull this up on your smartphone or tablet as long as you have Wi-Fi connectivity. So I find it very handy to walk out in the front yard and have different tests going on without having to keep running back and forth inside. So I have a file manager in here as well, so you can see I've got a bunch of different sequences uploaded already. If you had audio files or video files, things like that, this is where you kind of upload them. And then we have a scheduler. You can see every day of the week I have something different going on. You can add as many as you want versus many days as you wanted. So you could have 2 things on Saturday. You could do it by date. You can see my run dates. So you can actually have a different display every night of the week if you had all the programs in place as well. And so you'll see that I usually start most of mine at 5 o'clock and I'm at 10 or 11 at night. So it's kind of a quick crash course on how to do this and with the Falcon Player as well. So without going into too much detail, I think their blog and forum does a phenomenal job of helping people troubleshoot and set up their displays. So I won't dig into too much here because every display is going to be different. But I did want to show you how kind of Xlights works, create a sequence, and how you get it out to the Player and then schedule it as well. So hopefully this is helpful for folks. If you have any questions, you can hit the comments below. You're welcome to give us a call or shoot us an email as well.